And it's surprising how many different people not only misunderstood or misunderstand the original messages, but they also totally misunderstand you, when you're trying to talk about all these different things. So, any words on that?
Yeah. You know that when you go into a church, yeah, you hear the preacher saying something which doesn't make too much sense to you.
Yeah.
But you understand the language as far as let's say grammar and syntax and semantic concept. But there is still a message within the message that only the congregation will be called. The guy says, okay, we are born again, the Spirit is talking to me right now. And the congregation understands what the congregation understands is basically we are one closed word. He is one of us. If you say amen, you are one of ours. So the message in itself, I mean the message as conveyed by the syntax of the statement is not the most important message. The message is communicated by some clues. Let me take for instance Dr. Rosler, big quantity analysis. It's very important, so very interesting. I say I'm a principled guy who stands for his conviction. Then I say, you are very stubborn. And say about the other guy, he's obstinate. Now basically I'm describing the same reality. I'm describing two different people. And what they understand when I say I am a principled and I'm consistent in my beliefs and my words, I am one of yours. And I am going to stick to our philosophy. When I say he is obstinate, he is basically also a person who means what he says and stands for what he believes, but he is on the other side. So he's against us. That's why we say he's obstinate. So you see, there is this other language when we are talking. We are playing the game language, which communicates meaning beyond the semantic meaning of words and syntax. And this is, this happens a lot in religion, in politics, in subcultures. Like every subculture has its own body language and messages in appear and music and narrative. So, it's universal.
Yeah, I really like this idea of the way you describe it, by saying that communication is basically playing a language game. And I remember a while back when I was younger, and even today perhaps, like certain, maybe not so much in the US, but some of the cultures or ethnic groups in Europe, especially in the Germans in Romania and the Hungarians, they're so proud of speaking their own language, and they make sure that their kids really learn the mother language or their language of their ethnic group. We don't see this so much in the US and also in Taiwan. A lot of the Taiwanese today, they don't teach their kids the traditional Taiwanese language. They basically teach their kids Mandarin or Chinese, which is the official spoken language. And why do you think people, in some parts of the world today, they put so much emphasis and so much pride on, my kid has to speak this language, and I don't really care if he or she will master the official language of the country, as long as he or she can speak the traditional or the ethnic language. But no, people don't realize that this is actually probably not that good for their kid, because like back in Romania, there were some Hungarians and even Germans, such that they were not able to communicate in the official language, which was Romanian, so well, so they could actually hold a good job, but they were able to communicate very well in their own language, and luckily for some of those Germans, they were able to immigrate to Germany, but unfortunately for some of those Hungarians, they weren't able to immigrate to Hungary, and even if they would have, Hungary wasn't, at that time, Hungary wasn't that much better off than Romania, so the kids always had to suffer the consequences of this language game, that the parents were playing, in my opinion. But what's your take on this? Because you lived there longer, and you lived in different parts of the world longer, to where you saw this perhaps language game being played by certain adults that, in my opinion, were not so in touch with reality. They never came out of the mystification of this language game.
No, let's take an example, another example. I think this is more accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
So take the United States of America.
Yeah.
And you have different dialects spoken by different people. So you have black English, okay?
Yeah.
And you have Appalachian English. You have Southern. And you notice that people stick to their own peculiar way to pronouncing the words. For instance, the Southern draws or the black draws, when they compress the words or the vowels. Now, this is a message. You are one of ours. So you go to certain place in the world, and let's say you go to the Appalachians, or go to the countryside in the south in the United States, or you go to an urban area, and you speak the language of that people. It is basically the same English, but the way you pronounce the idioms communicates, yes, I am one of yours, okay? Now, I believe this is a matter of identity. So, through our language, or through our jargon, for instance, we want to show the other people that we are part of that community, because we need support from that community. Now, you talk about the close community of Saxons or Hungarians in Transylvania, for instance. They rely on each other in life a lot. They were very loyal to one another in those communities. And it's interesting, the Saxons, they don't speak plain language, plain German, they just German. Every single village, almost every single village in Transylvania had its own dialect, because it's a mountainside, and so communities are isolated from one another. Every community speaks its own dialect of German, not just literary German. Why? Because as long as you speak that kind of language, you are recognized, you are identified as one of them. So you can rely on their support, and you are ready to support. Now, of course, this is beginning to become history, because the world changed, and we are relying less on the support of community as we rely on the support of institutions. When I need to borrow money, I don't need to have good neighbors. I need to have good credit. Yeah. If I need to make a loan, I don't need good friends in my community to lend me the money. I need to have good credit. Yeah. So in our career, we are going to live in different groups, different backgrounds, ethnic origin, races, and so there is another diversification of language, because doctors have their language, lawyers have their language, craftsmen have their language. And for instance, I noticed one morning I was at Starbucks getting my coffee, and there were some construction workers talking to one another in Starbucks. And I noticed their communication was very brief, very succinct. But they communicated a lot because they were in the same trade. And so they didn't too many words to communicate among them. So it's like in religion, like in politics, every trade is developing its own communication, and a Chinese businessman and an American businessman are going to speak the same language, which basically is going to be Greek to people outside their realm of business, you know? But they understand pretty well each other, although they speak different accents and different pronunciations, and probably different idioms in English. But they understand very well each other, and people just listening to and overhearing the conversation understand nothing, because now we have another kind of diversification of language, which is a global scale, and you have different people speaking different languages. So going back to ISIS, ISIS speaks a simple language, which is very well tuned as propaganda, not toward the Muslim world only. It's tuned toward the enfranchised people, the Western world. This is the key of their success in equipping people. And so, but it's the same thing. Not everybody understands the language. So it's like those who have ears to listen. Same thing.
Yeah. You know, let's get back to perhaps more practical situation about languages. We see now that throughout the world, like now I come here and I've been teaching a few different courses in English to Taiwanese culture or to Taiwanese people, and it seems like more and more people around the world, they put more emphasis on having subjects in universities or having classes in universities being taught in English rather than in their native language. So why do you think there's all of this? Well, not all of a sudden, but slowly this emerging of communication in a certain language being spread throughout the world for perhaps the reason that English is revered like the international language of communication. If you ask me, I don't think English is particularly the best language to communicate messages, because there are certainly other languages which are more abundant in and easier to communicate a message in rather than English. But it seems like English is being every other language to it.
Even artificial languages, for instance.
Yeah. So what's your...
Yeah, artificial language, yeah.
What's your...
You know, I mean, there is an answer to that question, and that is the answer to British Empire. But I believe there is a deeper reason for the success of the English language. The English language is the best language to become an international language, just because it is not the best, the most accurate, the most inflexible, by the way. So the English language has a very interesting history, because the British has been raided a couple of times first by the Romans, by the Vikings, by the Normans. So there has been a few invasions of England, and because of those invasions, there has been a lot of blending, and it's very interesting. Very few rules. Basically, if you compare the German language, it's very elaborate, while the English language is based on idioms, and it's very flexible. But even more, it's very interesting that the English language has an ability to evolve that very few languages possess, and this is because of its history. So the English are still sticking with their spelling system, which is outdated, but you see in internet communication how the English language is evolving against the rules of spelling. For instance, you take laws, or am I right, for instance, that new expression in internet English, you know? Now, the English has this ability to evolve, and basically it has I think it has a few very has plenty of words. Basically, if you take an English dictionary, it's twice as big as a German dictionary. Now, German is a very rich language. There are a lot of words. It's one of the richest languages in the world. The English language has twice as many words as German. On the other hand, English has also a lot of idioms and cliches, but very few rules. And from here, we have the English language is very rapidly evolving. You see how the English language, even English spelling, evolved in internet communication, on Twitter, for instance, and on YouTube, on Facebook, on all those tools. And so I believe that it's the particular nature of the English language that has been changed a couple of times in the early Middle Ages that makes English able to adapt. So let me put it like this. Actually, everybody speaks his or her own English. I speak my English, you speak your English. And what is nice in America is that, for instance, if I go to Germany, I have to speak standard German in order to have the respect of the Germans and to be able to communicate. But in America, you speak your own English and everybody understands, or at least guesses what you say.
And you don't get disrespected because of that.
Excuse me?
And you don't get disrespected because of that. You get appreciated.
Yeah, basically, if you know somebody's an immigrant, if that person doesn't master the slang of language and the idioms. But basically, you say like that, you don't get too much respect if you speak broken English and so and so. But on the other hand, it's less, people are less judgmental, less inquisitorial than in Europe, where the French and the German want foreigners to speak good German or French, while the Americans say, okay, or British, I like the same, okay. Let him speak his English or her English, and we are okay, because afterwards it's a game, and we are just playing the game. If we are able to play the game, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what kind of rocket the other guy has in his hands, if he plays by the rules.
Okay. Okay, Eddie, I think the discussion unfortunately has to come to an end because our class time is over. It's unfortunate that we were not able to get the communication system ready earlier, and then this took a lot of our time away. But we really appreciate you coming and talking to us.
It's my pleasure.
And
the topic, I think I was happy to discuss it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I was able to invite you to our discussion forums. So we really want to thank you, and hopefully we'll learn some things about communication and languages, and evolution of languages and communication and so forth. Do you have any last questions or anything? I think what I'm going to do is, if we have any questions, maybe we'll email you, and then if you have time, send us a quick response. We wish you a good night. I think it's what, 8 o'clock over there? It's 10 o'clock in the morning here. So thank you again, Eddie, and
have a nice day, guys.
Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Okay, have a good night.
The same. Have a good day.
Sure. Okay, so I know that maybe it was kind of difficult to understand everything he said. I do like the last thing he says about communicating in English. The reason why English is going to be the most popular form of communication in the world now and in the future is because the English language allows everyone to speak their own English rather than Chinese or German or French, like you were saying, which are kind of rigid. French, for example, they don't allow you to speak your own French. They'll laugh at you. They'll say, don't talk to me in French if you cannot speak French. Germans are the same way. Many other languages are very much like that. They don't really give you the freedom of speaking that language in your own language, which English seems to do very well. I think, and English is also, it's also very flexible. It evolves a lot faster than most other languages. So it's not because it's the most beautiful or the most interesting language to communicate in, but it's because it's the most practical. So who knows? Maybe other languages might evolve in the same way like English does, and they might be able to even take over English in the future. We don't know, but it seems like English will be dominant as the international way of communicating messages for quite some time. So I think this was one important thing. There was some other important things that I got from his speech. I'm going to actually post this on YouTube, and then I'll give you guys 2 or 3 weeks to write your reaction paper, because I think it's going to take some time for you to maybe go back and because what I'll do to make it easier for you, I'm going to ask you some of the important aspects of his speech, and then you can like go back or rewind and try to answer my questions in a way that makes sense to you and also enables you to learn something from this speech, because I think he spoke about a lot of interesting things in terms of communication and how religion actually and beliefs developed the grammar in communication and developed a particular way of communicating so that everybody could and should understand a message the same way. Although people are people, we're always going to understand things in our own way. So anyway, I'll stop here, and then next week is midterm, and I think our midterm is probably going to be about some things we talked about before. I might ask you some questions about like Hartman's personality profile, and some things about psychology and some of the things that we talked about before. I'm going to post some practice questions on our Facebook group, so that you have an idea of what I'm going to ask you on the midterm. So basically, our midterm is like essay questions, maybe 6 or 7, not too long, maybe like 2 or 3 sentences each, and that's pretty much it. So okay, that's all. So I feel so bad that last time I was able to connect to find the connection so quickly, and this time it took so long to get this thing set up. But and thank you for your. You should probably turn off your because it's going to eat your battery. But yeah, I think I should have thought about this from the beginning, and yeah, it would have been a lot easier. But oh well. So how do we stop this thing? Okay, so Shaka.